Welcome to this week's episode of Plan Today, Own Tomorrow. I'm subbing for our usual host, Gary Thurman, who's out on assignment this week.
Having a good time.
Some much-needed and well-deserved R&R for him and his wife, Rhonda. I've got Tim McDermott in with me this week. And as we get close to the end of the year, it's already that time. We're going to talk about some of the end-of-the-year financial moves to make before the calendar year ends and then before income tax season comes in. But before that, Tim, how are you?
I'm good. Have you walked into a store and heard Christmas music yet?
I don't think I've heard a Christmas song yet this year.
It's a little early probably still, but I bet it's coming any second now. That is your cue to go out there and look at end-of-year planning. We're going to talk about some big topics today. We're going to talk about making those contributions to the 401ks, some Roth conversions, potentially some tax planning along the way as well. So stay tuned. If you're watching us on YouTube Live, we're in here in matching sweatshirts today. It's a great view.
Yeah, we look pretty good. We're in our matching Guardian pullovers. It's starting to get cold.
It is.
It's starting to get cold.
I feel like we skipped fall. I think Tristan was talking to me about that the other day. We kind of just skipped through fall, went right from hot to just cold.
Yeah, it was actually sleeting at my house the other day.
Ooh,
so
solid.
It's coming. The end of the year is coming too, and so we're going to talk about a couple of things: tax advantages, deadlines, how to get your financial house in order before the end of the year so you can start 2026, which is wild to say, off on the right foot. Let's talk about some deadlines, Tim, because a lot of times these deadlines, some of them they're the end of the calendar year. Some of them are before you file your income taxes, which could be April 15th. For many, it's even later than that, so there's things to take into account there. But there's some things you absolutely have to do before year end. Let's talk about some of those.
Yeah, one of the big ones, and this is one we've been harping about for quite a while here recently, is Roth conversions. If you're looking at doing Roth conversions, those have to be done by December 31st. They have to be done in the calendar year in which you want the conversion to be done. I know that all these laws get confusing, right? Because you can make contributions to a Roth up until April 15th usually, but you can't make conversions up to that date. Those have to be done in that calendar year. This is something we've talked a lot about and done a lot of planning for in the last year. You want to talk to them a little bit about why we're doing Roth conversions, why it's such a big deal right now?
Yeah, Roth conversions are a huge tool that a lot of people are using now to make sure we can kind of control how much income tax you're going to pay. We're in the third lowest income tax bracket we've ever been in this country. We talk about it all the time. And the One Big Beautiful Bill Act extended that for at least 4 years. And so we've got this great window where you know exactly what income tax liability you're going to pay on tax-deferred money, which is your IRA, traditional IRAs,
Yep.
401ks. That's what the majority of Americans have saved their money in. Because they get an income tax deduction when they put those funds into those types of accounts. The issue is you pay full boat, what they call ordinary income tax when you take it out.
That's right.
It is the highest income tax treatment you have under the IRS code. So what is that going to be in 10, 15, 20 years? We don't know. We do know what it is now. We do know it's the third lowest ever. So what we're trying to help people do is take monies from those pre-tax accounts and convert a chunk of it. I don't think we've ever said, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Client, let's just move the whole thing in 1 year because you would automatically, for most people, go into the highest income tax bracket all in 1 year.
Yep.
From a math standpoint, it could make sense for some folks, but, man, writing that check next year to Uncle Sam would be huge.
It hurts.
So we try to figure out what is the amount that you can convert to pre-tax to Roth and usually stay in the same income tax bracket you're currently in. Right, not pay a higher rate. You will pay more in taxes, though.
Sure. Yeah, but paying those taxes now while taxes are cheap is the beneficial move. Not to mention that in the Roth, the gains then grow tax-free and come out tax-free later
Mhm.
on. So if you're looking at how do I get away from paying Uncle Sam for the entirety of my life, Roth conversions are probably a good option, and you should look at them, especially now considering the circumstances we're in and the low tax brackets that we now have that are permanent, right?
Yeah, that's exactly right. And you want to make sure that you've maximized your deferrals to those accounts before the end of the year.
Sure.
IRAs, you mentioned earlier, you can contribute before you file your income taxes.
401ks follow a different guideline. though,
That's
don't
right.
they?
That's right. 401ks, your traditional 401k that you have with your employer, you need to make sure that those contributions are in before the end of the calendar year. And so go ahead and take a look at it. Most of the portals online are really useful now. They'll show you a year-to-date contribution amount, and you can check that out and see if you have any more money before the end of the year that you can kind of put away in those accounts. For most people, the 401k limit this year is $23,000. If you're above age 50, you can put $30,500 in those type of accounts. So if you got a little nest egg in your savings and you can afford to stick a little more in before the end of the year, I'd suggest you do that.
It's a good opportunity.
It is. And then something we look at often for our clients in taxable accounts. And taxable accounts are those that aren't retirement. They don't have any special income tax treatment. So not a 401k, not an IRA, not a Roth, not an HSA, which we'll talk about a little bit later. If you just have a general brokerage account, see if there's any losses you can harvest in those accounts. And the way this works is these brokerage accounts throughout the year, as soon as you realize a gain or a loss, right?
Yeah,
If you
explain that a little bit. So realizing that gain, what does that actually mean?
So you can go look at your statement, and it'll show how much those assets have appreciated, or unfortunately, sometimes they depreciate, right? And you have
Sure.
a loss. But you don't pay taxes on that gain until you sell that asset. Even if you don't take the money out of the account, if you sell an asset in a taxable investment account, you'll get a 1099 for that gain.
Sure.
And so you may not have realized that as income into your checking account, but Uncle Sam's going to send you that 1099.
Sure.
Well, what you can do before the end of the year is if you happen to have some investments in those same accounts that have lost value, for the year, you can sell those assets at a loss, and it offsets those gains. And it's something really neat to look at. I would caution people to not let the tax tail wag the dog, right?
Great-
You can
great
have
point.
really good investments that for whatever reason have lost value, and you can sell those at a loss, but you have to wait at least 30 days before you repurchase them, right? Otherwise, you get caught up in what's called a wash sale rule,
And they'll cancel each other out.
and they'll cancel each other out. So it doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
But if there's something you can do to capture some of those losses, right? You got to realize them. You got to sell it at a loss for them to offset. It's something you can do. You just want to make sure that, again, you do it in the right way. So.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think this is a powerful tool that a lot of folks are using for the tax planning side of things. Tax loss harvesting is what Bobby's referring to there. And it can be a great way to offset some of the gains throughout the year by getting rid of some of those losers along the way. I know we don't talk about this a ton, but charitable giving is also a nice solution here, right? I know we're getting towards the end of the year. And we're talking about December 31st. If you want to make charitable contributions, those need to be done in the calendar year in which you want to use them for, meaning by December 31st. Given to your church, maybe down the street, or your favorite charity in town. Great way to write a check. I'll tell you one of the most powerful ways to give to those charities is something called a QCD. Bobby, we talk about this. We have talked about it quite a few times this year, but qualified charitable distributions come from your IRA. What makes those so different than the just writing a check from your checking account?
Yeah, everybody, when they have an IRA or 401k, you're going to get to an age that you're going to be subject to what's called required minimum distributions.
Yep.
Right now, that age is 73. A lot of people remember the old rule, 7.5, and that will actually go out in 2030 to 75. But regardless, if you have pre-tax retirement savings, you're going to be subject to those required minimum distributions. Even if you don't need the money, Uncle Sam says, you never paid me a dime of income tax on those accounts, guess what?
Gotta
Now's
start.
the time to pay me.
Yeah.
And if you don't need the money, it just adds extra income taxes onto your income tax return. So what this QCD allows you to do is actually give those RMDs directly to a charity. You know, a popular one for our clients is the church. You know, if you're giving to your church every week or every month, and you're doing it out of your checking account, you do get some sort of charitable benefit for that, but it's not nearly as strong as taking all of that income that would come from that required minimum distribution and doing away with it on your income tax return. So if you're giving already to a charity and you are subject to RMDs, maybe QCDs are something you need to talk about. Here's a wrinkle in that rule, though. I just said RMD rules now start at 73.
Yep.
So the government, in their infinite wisdom, when they changed those RMDs to go out to 73 and then 75 in 2030, they didn't change the QCD rules.
Yep.
So you can actually start QCDs early at the old RMD age of 70 and a half. And so you've got
a couple years before you have to pull them out, you can start doing
yeah,
this,
it could be
which is nice.
3 years that if you're given, you can reduce the balance in your IRAs and reduce those RMD amounts in the future. So it's a complicated thing. We've got calculators on our website that I'll be mentioning throughout today's show. That website is GIAplantoday.com. That's GIAplantoday.com. Go check our website out. It's really good. It's got a handful of calculators, talk about taxes, legacy, risk. And then there's also a spot where you can ask us questions.
Yeah, a lot of what we talk about on our show here is based on viewer questions. What are you guys wanting to know? What are you guys wanting to see? What do you want to know more about? We read those questions. We develop a radio show based around a lot of those questions so that we can make this show relevant to you guys. So if you want to see a little bit more about that, GIAplantoday.com. Jump on there. Check us out. All of our radio shows, TV shows are actually listed on there. And we'll look forward to seeing you in our next segment. We're going to talk a little bit more in depth about these deadlines and what you can do before the end of the year. We'll look forward to seeing you back here in just a few.
Here's the truth. 70% of us will need some type of long-term care. Most people aren't prepared. And traditional long-term care insurance, it's expensive, and if you don't use it, you lose it. We have modern solutions, plans to protect your retirement, preserve your legacy, and give you flexibility. Text LTC to the number you see on your screen and get your guide today. Let's plan for tomorrow starting now.
Welcome back to Plan Today, Own Tomorrow. My name is Bobby Futch. I'm here with my friend and colleague, Tim McDermott. We're talking about year-end planning in today's show. We kind of had a laundry list of things in the first segment that you need to look at. We're going to spend some time going through those a little more. In the first segment, we talked about reviewing 401k and IRA contributions.
Yep.
Really important. We didn't talk about confirming tax withholding, but we can talk about that. That's really important.
Sure.
We talked about
Roth conversions.
Roth conversions. We talked about offsetting gains and losses in your taxable accounts.
Charitable contributions.
Charitable contributions. It was a packed segment. So we're going to unpack some of those, talk about a couple other things you need to look at before the end of the year. And so we're going to talk now about income, investments, and we're going to talk to some of our small business owners in this segment because there's a lot that you can change and adjust. If you had that flexibility to adjust income, expenses, those sorts of things, there's some things we can do. So business owners, if we have a small business owner, what are some of those things, Tim, that they should be looking at?
Yeah, small business owners get some of the best opportunities to make contributions and save on taxes out here right now. By being a 1099 income earner, it really opens up the door for you. And one of the most popular things that we do for folks is looking at SEP IRAs or even solo 401ks. Now, why do we look at this? We look at this because the contribution limit to a traditional IRA is $7,000 this year. $8,000 if you're over the age of 50, but that's a pretty minute amount if you're looking to start saving in large chunks. And it really doesn't give you a whole ton of tax savings right there. And so when we look at something like a SEP IRA has a bit different rules. It's a 25% of your income up to, I think it was $70,000 this year. And so that gives you a much larger contribution amount. Simply put, if you made $100,000 in 1099 income, you could put up to $25,000 into the SEP IRA this year.
That's huge.
That's a much bigger contribution, much better tax savings, and really opens up the door for you. Now, if you're in that lower range, maybe a solo 401k is a better opportunity for you. The nice thing about doing a solo 401k, that contribution limit of I think it's 30,500 over the age of 50 still applies. But there's no 25%. You could make $30,500 in your company and contribute all of it into that 401k plan. And so that may be a bigger benefit if you've also got another income coming in and just looking to put all that money aside for later on.
Yep, those are great tools that are available to 1099 employees.
That's right.
So essentially business owners, right? Unfortunately, our W-2 clients and people listening, that their income is reported on a Form W-2, those are not available to you. One of the other things that business owners and self-employed folks can do is, prepay some expenses.
Sure.
Right? If you know that you're going to pay something in the first couple of months of 2026, you have the option to move those in to the end of 2025.
Yep.
You can deduct them on this year's income taxes, which is a really neat thing that you're able to do. And then I was just thinking about this, Tim. We just talked about retirement plans.
Yes.
And how the contributions to retirement plans are deductible for a business owner. And we talked about prepaying expenses. So if you combine those two, does your business have a retirement plan for your employees? And if it doesn't, maybe if you're in that position and that's something you want to do, we should think about that.
Sure.
Right? Setting that up, because there's really two benefits there. One, any contributions your company makes, an employee match, for example, is deductible on that business's income.
Yep.
And any administration costs of those retirement plans are also deductible on the business's income taxes. And so if you're in a position as a business owner where you want to start, want to try to retain some of your employees,
Sure.
Want to offer them the ability to start saving for retirement, perhaps you can set up one of those retirement plans, and you can participate in those plans as the owner.
Yep.
And so, you can give them a little benefit, help, drive down your business income, and that sort of thing can be really, really beneficial.
I got another big one for you. Are
What's
you
that?
ready?
I'm ready.
It's Section 179. Did you ever
All
watch
right, Tim.
The Price is Right? We're going to go back a little bit to the Bob Barker days.
Oh, yeah. I love Bob Barker.
Yeah,
and
they
Price is
open
Right.
up the curtain and it's a brand new car, right? Well, Section 179 allows you to go out and purchase a car and essentially depreciate that on an accelerated level on your taxes now. That's also one of the big tools that is a nice thing to be able to use. If you're out there buying a truck or an SUV for your company, you can actually write off that truck on your taxes either now or over a few years. And it goes on to a depreciation schedule. It's a quick way to get a nice big deduction. There's a few rules you got to follow with it. I think it's got to be 6,000 pounds or more on gross vehicle weight, and it's got to go on that depreciation schedule.
That's how a lot of business owners use that Section 179 deduction. But it was there originally for equipment purchases.
Sure. Yeah.
Right. So if there's any heavy
qualifies.
equipment
Tractors
that your business needs, and you're going to need it next year, you need a tax deduction this year, you can afford to purchase it. That's a big one.
It is.
Because the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, kind of supercharged those Section 179 deductions.
Sure.
And to your point, if it meets certain requirements, you can deduct the whole value
Sure.
of that piece of equipment in the current year. Again, it's a little gray area, right? You got to make sure you check all the boxes in that. But even if you don't get that accelerated depreciation all in 1 year, you can take it over a handful of years, and it really helps your income taxes.
That's right.
Let's talk about investors. We mentioned a little bit about this or in our last segment, but rebalancing portfolios, that's a big one that we see now because the equity markets have just been on a tear.
Yeah, I have some mixed feelings about rebalancing, right? I think it has its place and it should be done when it's needed to be done. But I think rebalancing just for the sake of rebalancing can harm you a lot of times. And here's the thought behind it, right? Imagine you rebalance 3 or 4 times this year, and you're in that stock and bond mix, right? As that stock and bond mix grows, the stock and equity side is going to grow quite a bit faster than the bond side will. And so as you rebalance, you're taking money from your winners and you're buying them into those slower growing years. Now, the idea behind this is to keep that initial balance of risk tolerance in check, right? So we don't necessarily want to end up in a position where you originally started out in a 60-40 blend and now you're 80% in equities and you're taking on more risk than you initially wanted to. That's why you rebalance. But the idea of taking those winners, selling them off, and buying the losers, if you will, is a bit difficult for me.
Yeah, it's always important to know what your risk tolerance is when you talk about
Sure.
rebalancing. And there's a lot that goes into that. Tim, we talked in the previous segment about a bunch of tools we have out available to our listeners. And one that helps you come up with just that answer, what is your risk tolerance, is our GIAriskquiz.com.
This
That's
is
GIAriskquiz.com.
It's a powerful tool. It'll help you understand what your risk tolerance is and at least get you started on that conversation. And then we can talk about the rebalancing structure and what that actually looks like. Typically, Bobby, when we look at doing rebalancing, we're looking at this from a very intentional point of view. We're not just rebalancing to average things back out. We're doing it because there's an economic or legislative change that requires us to do this. Meanwhile, we're trying to make sure that we keep that risk tolerance in check and not letting it go too far out.
Yeah, that's a great point. GIAriskquiz.com will help you figure out what that is for yourself. There's something here that's kind of technical that I want people to be aware of that not a lot of people are. Capital gains distributions, right? And so if you own mutual funds, it's probable that you're going to get what's called a capital gains distribution. And they can be meaningful.
Sure.
And they can be kind of a surprise, right?
Sure.
Because it really just depends on how that mutual fund performed for the year. All of a sudden, you can get a big chunk of money dropped in your account near year end. That's a good thing, right? But it can affect your taxes.
It can.
And so if you're one of those folks that does really good tax planning throughout the year with your accountant or your CPA to make sure you don't withhold too much or too little, you really need to take into account capital gains distributions and dividends towards the year end. Because when they hit, it's usually really close to the year end.
Sure.
Sometimes it's even in the year after. And you really have no way to plan for that because those deadlines we talked about in our first segment have already passed, and you're kind of stuck with that tax bill.
Sure.
So make sure you understand what the capital gains distributions and dividends look like for your investments, and make sure they're taken into account when you do your tax planning.
I think that's really important when we're talking about doing the Roth conversion specifically, because typically when we do those Roth conversions, we're trying to fill an unused tax bracket. If the top of that tax bracket is $200,000 and you're at $1.50 right now, that gives us about $50,000 of room to do some conversions, right? Obviously, that's rudimentary math, but you get the idea. If all of a sudden, another $10,000, $20,000 in capital gains was shoved into your account, now it pushes you over into the next tax bracket, and that can be a problem at the end of the day. And so we're paying attention to those types of accounts that are out there.
Tim, we're running up on the end of this segment, but I think we'd be doing a disservice if we didn't talk about my favorite type of account out there, right? HSAs. They're a huge, huge benefit for a number of reasons, including income taxes. They're actually the only triple taxed advantage account the IRS allows.
Awesome tool to use.
Yeah, do you mind letting the folks know a little bit about what an HSA is?
Yeah, so triple tax advantage, meaning that we get a tax deferral on the way in, we get tax deferred growth, and as long as we use it for those qualifying medical expenses, it comes out tax-free, and it's used tax-free. And so that's 3 tax advantages. You'll never pay tax on that money as long as you use it and work with it the proper way. Powerful tool. Only used for those high deductible plans, but if it's available to you, I would strongly consider using it. I think you can max out at up to $8,000, just over $8,000 for a family, right?
And a lot of HSA administrators will allow you to invest those funds.
Yes.
Right, so not only will those funds grow as you can contribute to it, it can grow over time because there's a lot of indexing and market options that are available in there.
Absolutely. If you're looking for some ways to save on taxes, if you're looking to look at your entire tax picture and make some decisions, plantodaytaxbill.com. It's a great tool to use. You go in there, take about 3 or 4 minutes, put your information in, you'll get a report back, and we can talk in further detail about what that looks like for you. Again, that's plantodaytaxbill.com, and we'll look forward to seeing you on our next segment. The scariest 4 words in retirement: out of money forever.
That's the number one fear we hear, running out of money before running out of life. You've worked decades to build savings, but without a plan, that nest egg could dry up faster than you think.
And let's be honest, the market alone won't guarantee your income.
Exactly. That's why we create income streams that last as long as you do. It's about turning savings into a paycheck for life.
To get your income planning guide, text the word income to 877-706-7526.
Welcome back to Plan Today, Own Tomorrow. This week we are talking about end-of-year planning and tax opportunities.
It's already that time, isn't it?
It is already that time. You mentioned earlier, I hadn't quite heard the Christmas music yet, but it is coming.
I can sing one for you if you want.
We'll pass on that.
Oh,
I don't want our listeners
It's
to
not
have to
that
deal
kind
with
of
that.
radio show, huh?
Now, we're going to talk about some family estate and goal planning in this segment. This is an interesting one because for a lot of people, they don't think about this because it doesn't affect them necessarily right now in this income tax year. But this is one of those things that you have to have a long-term plan and you have to execute it regularly over, sometimes decades.
Yep.
And so some of these things are not on people's minds. So we just want to kind of remind them annual gifting limits.
Yeah. How much do you like your kids usually? Is that question?
Grandkids, all those sorts of things.
What does this mean, right? So we hear about gifting limits all the time. Does it mean that if you gift over this number, which I think it's $18,000 or $19,000 right now?
$18,000 in 2025.
Yeah. So if you gift more than that, are you going to have to pay taxes on it? Do your kids have to pay taxes on it? Absolutely not, really, right? All it means is that you can gift this much without filing an extra form on your tax return. If you file more than that, it goes towards your estate tax limit, which right now is $15 million a person.
Mm-hmm.
Most people don't have this issue. You're not going to have to worry about paying those estate taxes right now. That could change. It could sunset. It could do a lot of things down the road. But as of right now, it's a pretty high limit, and it doesn't look like it's going to go anywhere. So you can always gift more than that $18,000. Just make sure you let your accountant know so that you can make that additional documentation on your tax returns. Why would you do this? We've had a handful of clients come in here and talk to us about how they want to leave their kids some money. But they really want to see them enjoy it, and they don't necessarily want to wait till they've passed away for their kids to enjoy that money. And so we've had a handful of clients who are giving their kids a gift each year to help them out throughout life.
Yep, we had a client this year that gave their daughter a substantial amount of money to help her purchase her first house.
That's right.
Right, and again, to your point, she gave her well in excess of $18,000, which is that limit. She just had to file a gift tax return for
Sure.
that, right? Just let the IRS know, hey, I did give some money away. And the way that accounting works is if all your gift tax returns over your lifetime, as long as they don't add up to over $15 million currently, you're not going to pay taxes on that, but there is that documentation that has to be made. The neat thing about that is that's a direct gift to a beneficiary. And if you're married, you can do what's called split gifting.
That's right.
So, Tim, you could give me $18,000 this year. I'd give you a hug and say thank you. Joelle likes me so much, her wife. She could also give me $18,000,
That's right.
And I would love the McDermott family more than I already do. But so if you're trying to give your kids a little more than that $18,000, there's ways to do it.
Yeah, we had a client walk in not too long ago, and I believe it's their son that's getting married, and they needed about $20,000 to do the wedding. I said, okay, great, you're going to give them those funds, right? And they said, yeah, of course. And they said, we're just going to give it to our son. I said, I can save you a little bit of a headache by just giving him the $18,000, and then your wife could give him the other $2,000, or you could look at just paying $2,000 of those bills just to save you from that other form. Right?
Yeah, the great thing about this is if you pay directly to a provider, this comes up most often with our clients talking about paying college tuition.
Yep.
Right, college tuition's pretty stout nowadays, and if it's going to cost more than $18,000 for you to pay for your kids' education, their tuition, you can pay the school directly.
Sure.
And that doesn't count as a direct gift to them. So that's another way that you can get around that rule. Speaking of education funding, Tim and I talk about these kind of accounts all the time.
A 529?
A 529. One of us is a huge fan. The other one, not so much. But they are really, really good tools in one of our opinions.
They can be phenomenal.
My opinion.
They can be
My
phenomenal.
point is that you can give to 529 plans, and it's not a gift. And so if you want to contribute to a child's 529 plan, if an aunt and uncle wants to contribute to your kids, grandparents, they can do that. And if you're in a state that has state income taxes, our neighbor to the south here, Georgia,
Yep.
has a state income tax. I lived and worked in Georgia for years and years and years. So my daughter has a Georgia 529 plan.
Sure.
And so my wife is still employed by somebody in Georgia. So we pay Georgia state income taxes. And our contributions to that 529 plan every year allow me to deduct that against her income. Not mine, but hers.
The
and it
state
helps.
income,
It's
correct.
it's a state income tax.
Yeah.
529 plans, unfortunately, don't have a federal income tax benefit. So 529 plans can be a great way to do that if you want to gift for a very specific reason. And estate planning, right? Make sure that if your estate plan is over, 3 or 4 years old, or if you've had a big life change,
Go have it
death,
reviewed.
divorce, child, go have it reviewed.
We've seen too many times where these are done years ago and you think it's a one and done plan. Legislative laws change and you want to make sure you stay up to that. But the bigger picture or the bigger issue we've seen more recently is the beneficiary issue. Maybe you're leaving money to your son and his wife and they've gotten divorced, or maybe one of your children or grandchildren predeceased you, God forbid. But these are problems, right? And so you want to make sure that the beneficiaries are updated in the way that you want them to be. I've had about 2 or 3 times somebody walk into my office and they've had an ex-spouse listed as a beneficiary on some of these accounts. These are things that you really want to make sure that these are correct.
And unfortunately, if that does happen and you were to pass away, there's not a whole lot your beneficiaries can do. You would hope that ex-spouse would say, I know that's not what they wanted. I'll
right.
give them the money. But if they wanted to keep it,
Yep.
there's really nothing you can do about that. And so that's what we see more often than not. So
Let's take a minute, because I know we've talked a little bit this year about estate planning and some of the different documents that go with it. I just refinalized mine here recently, and I think that folks think that you've got to be around retirement age to have a trust and a will and power of attorneys. I would encourage you, especially if you have kids, whether they're 1 year old or 30 years old. If you have kids, it would be very important to go get an estate plan done.
yeah, without a doubt. And everybody thinks about wills and trusts as an estate plan, and they certainly are part of that. But make sure your power of attorneys and healthcare directives are in place and they reflect what you want.
Can you give us a 30-second bullet point list on the documents and what they're used for?
Yeah, so everybody needs a will, right? That's what happens with your stuff, your financial accounts, your personal property after you pass away. That needs to be in place. And you need to make sure that that reflects your current wishes. You may or may not need a trust. That is a conversation that I cannot fit into 30 seconds. But we can certainly help you think through that if that's something you are wanting to know about. If you own property in another state, I'll almost guarantee you need a revocable trust. Financial power of attorney is an important one.
Okay.
If that allows somebody to pay your bills and manage your finances if you are incapacitated or, just if you have surgery, right? And the recovery takes a couple weeks and you can't manage that. Somebody else can help with your finances, make sure the light bills are paid, make sure the car note and the mortgage are paid.
Sure.
Very important. And then the healthcare directive, often called an advanced directive for healthcare. That is an important one because not only does it say who you want to have make the decisions for you medically if you can't, it actually spells out line by line what decisions you want to have made.
Yep.
And I always say to people, an advanced directive for healthcare is not for you, right? It's for your family who is, mourning the fact that you're sick. They're taking care of you, and now all of a sudden they got to make these decisions, and they don't know what mama or daddy or sister or brother want.
Those can be very tough decisions.
It's if you have an advanced directive, it's spelled out.
Yep.
And it makes that decision so much easier for them. So again, will, power of attorney for financial matters, healthcare directive, must-haves, maybe a trust. And that rounds out a pretty good estate plan.
Agreed. Thanks, Bobby. Appreciate that.
Yeah, and the beneficiary thing's a big one.
Update those. Make
Update
sure
the
you them.
beneficiaries, right? Because those beneficiary accounts, things that pass via beneficiary designation, don't go through your will.
Yep.
And oftentimes you put an estate plan together that may avoid probate altogether using beneficiary designations. So if you got retirement accounts, if you've got POD or TOD, payable on death or transfer on death, designations on your bank accounts, which is fairly popular, you got to make sure those are updated.
Sure.
And the great state of Tennessee recently started to allow a transfer on death deed for real estate,
Awesome.
which is pretty cool. So you can put a POD on your home
Great.
and avoid probate. So that's a fairly new thing that not a lot of people know. Our friends in Georgia are kind of lagging behind on that a little bit. You know what, Tim? It's actually the opposite. Georgia allows it, Tennessee doesn't. Georgia allows it, Tennessee doesn't. So if you're in Georgia, you can do
you can do
that.
a
Tennessee
POD.
is lagging behind. Write your senators. Let them know you need that fixed.
That's right. That's right.
So this segment we talked about gifting and estate planning, and,
Yep.
and you want to make sure, even if there are no moves for you to make in gifting and estate planning before year end, you need to make sure that you just review those things.
Sure.
Because they can cause a headache for you and your family if something happens to you unexpectedly, and these aren't in place. So again, if you're interested in gifting, $18,000 limit, it can help get your estate down. It can help your beneficiaries enjoy some of the money that you intend to leave them anyway. You just get to watch them enjoy that, which is becoming more and more popular. 529 plan's a great way to gift to the younger generation, and estate planning and confirming your beneficiaries. So before the year ends, make sure you go on GIALegacyQuiz.com, GIALegacyQuiz.com. It'll ask you a lot of these questions. Make sure that you've thought about everything you need to do before year end. Then give us a call. We can help you work through all these.
Powerful tool. Stay tuned. I know at the beginning of our show, we talked about some tax loss harvesting, some charitable giving, some Roth conversions, even some HSA accounts. We're going to talk a little bit about that more in detail in our fourth segment. We'll look forward to seeing you here in just a few minutes. Do you want to leave memories or a mess?
So many families are left with confusion, taxes, and even court battles because there was no estate plan.
And it's not just for the wealthy. Estate planning is for everyone.
It protects your family, passes on your values, and ensures your wishes are carried out.
That's a real legacy, more than just money.
It's peace of mind for the people you love.
To get your estate planning guide, text the words Estate Planning Guide to 877-706-7526.
Welcome back to Plan Today, Own Tomorrow. This week's episode is all about Santa Claus and year's end.
Santa Claus.
Santa Claus. Not quite yet. But we're talking about year-end planning, financial planning, tax planning, estate planning, all these things that you want to look at and make sure you are taken care of before year end.
All I can think of is that movie Elf, and he sees Santa in is it a Macy's or a J.C. Penney's or something, and he just yells across the, Santa Claus, I know him.
It'll be here before we know it. We kind of got cut off a little earlier on the last segment. Let's talk about some goal reviews, right, before the end of the year. Hopefully you and your spouse or whoever is important to you in your financial world, you sat down at the beginning of the year and you had some goals for 2025. That's a really healthy thing to do. We talked about that a little bit on last week's episode, which if you didn't hear is on GIAPlantoday.com. You can go back and listen to that at GIAPlantoday.com. But it's always good to go back and check and see whether you met those goals. So, did you meet your savings goals for 2025?
Yeah, I've done this with my wife. We did it earlier this year. We will probably do it one more time before the end of the year. What that looks like for us is we have a spreadsheet built. If you know me at all, you know I like spreadsheets. And I've seen lots of people do something similar to this. But the idea here is to list out all of your expenses itemized, and so that you can see what they look like on a detailed basis. It's a great way to really take a full look at what you're actually spending. And the way we do this, we just go back through our banking statements, our credit card statements, look at subscriptions that we're paying, even the mortgage. And I would encourage you to break it out on gross numbers, meaning that don't use your take-home pay, use your gross pay, and then list out your 401k contributions and your health insurance costs, so on and so forth. Get a full picture look at what's going on, and make sure you understand it. Then you can decide, do we need to scale back? Do we have some room to grow? And I would highly encourage you to build your savings into that budget. don't make that the afterthought of the budget. It should be one of the first things that you write down on that sheet of paper or one of the first boxes you fill on that Excel spreadsheet. You've got to pay yourself first or it won't happen.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, Tim, and we see that way too much. You know, especially with the younger people, they'll say, you know, living's expensive, you know, food's expensive. We get it. Gas is expensive, but having a line item on that budget or that spending plan, even if it's $100 a month, right? Make sure
Start
that
somewhere.
is something you're proactively doing, and you'll be really older. You will be thankful that younger you did that.
I would encourage you to do 25% more than what you think you can do in savings. Once you start doing it, you won't miss it. And then you will be encouraged to up that savings amount as you go along. Don't get caught in this loop of what do they call it, Bobby? Uplifting? No, that's not it. When you live,
Lifestyle creep.
thank you,
Right.
lifestyle creep, where you make more money, so you spend more money. Try not to get caught up in that loop and lost in that.
It kind of in the same vein there is, you know, unfortunately, Tim, a lot of us carry debt. Right, and some debt is good. We talk often about how, you know, mortgage debt is generally a good debt.
Sure.
Car debt can be a good debt. Credit cards, almost never a good debt that people get wrapped up in. You know, I think it's very common. And so look back and see, you know, did you meet your debt goals for 2025?
Great point.
You know, a lot of us really put plans together to say, you know what, I'm done with that. I'm done with the credit cards. I'm cutting them up. I'm going to get those jokers paid off. And that's something that, although you won't see your balance sheet necessarily grow, you know, maybe your 401k, your savings didn't grow as quickly as it could because you're servicing those debts, which you should be doing after you have your emergency fund in place.
Debt paid off, though, feels better.
It absolutely does. And then looking to 2026, you know, a handful of years ago, we had inflation, you know, approaching 9%. And that's still really, really raw in a lot of people's minds. And inflation is real for long-term planning. So as you look out to 2026, look at some income changes. Look at how inflation affected your budget in 2025. Luckily, inflation stayed fairly low this year in 2025. A little higher than the long-term target that the Fed wanted.
We're still under 3%.
Still under
right
3%,
now. Yep.
Which is much better than 9%. Right, but make sure that as you look at 2026, you take into account those changes because you're going to be spending more in 2026 than
Sure.
you did in 2025.
Much agreed.
And one of the most important things is celebrate your wins, Tim. Right? So many people get, you know, locked into meeting goals and on to the next one and this sort of thing. You really need to celebrate your financial goals.
Much agreed. Much agreed. Take a minute, go out to dinner, build it into your budget.
Yeah.
But go out to dinner and celebrate the fact that you guys were able to pay off that debt, or celebrate the fact that you got your savings goal matched for the year. Whatever the case may be, make sure you take some time and enjoy it, because we talk about numbers all day long. It's what we do, right? It's our job to look at the finance and make sure that the picture makes sense for you and your family. And it's easy to get lost in that number and focus on, well, I've got to get this much put into savings. But at the end of the day, we're doing it all so that we can enjoy life and have it a more stress-free retirement. And if you're just stressing yourself to death to do it, it's almost defeating the purpose. So don't forget to take a step back, look at things, and remember that life's good.
You know, let's talk about a couple more things before we wrap up this week's show. We mentioned a couple of these, but I think they're really important tools that we're talking about quite a bit. So just a quick recap. Charitable giving is a big one, right? Charitable giving, the deadline for deducting charitable gifts on your income tax returns is December 31st. It's the calendar year. And so if you plan on making those charitable gifts, you know, if you plan on making them early next year and you could use them more on this year's income tax return, go ahead and make them before the end of the year. Qualified charitable distributions.
Yep.
Making those, if you're 70 and a half or older, making those charitable contributions out of your IRA may just be a win-win, right? You were going to make them anyway,
Yep.
And now you don't have to see that in income.
Yeah, a lot of you are given to your church or given to your favorite charity in town anyways. Do it through what's called a QCD. It's a powerful tool that you can use. You get a better tax deduction for it, and your charitable organization sees no difference in it at the end of the day. So take advantage of the tax laws that are there and how they can benefit you.
If you need a big charitable deduction this year or in a year, and you're not 70 and a half, or for whatever reason you don't want to take it out of your IRA accounts, donor advised funds are really good tools to use. They've been around for a while, but I think they're getting more and more popular. And it's like a charitable savings account, right? So you, Tim and Joelle, could open the McDermott Family Donor Advised Fund and give money to that fund.
Sure.
And it sits in that fund. You get the charitable deduction for it, for all of it, the year in which you fund it. But the cool thing is that money can sit in that account and grow.
Yeah, it
until
doesn't
you're
necessarily
ready.
mean it's going to the charity all
right.
at once. You can give it out over different years and make those decisions as you go, right?
Yeah, so for our 1099 and business owner clients, this could be a really popular tool. If you had a great year, you had a lot of income, you're looking at a huge tax bill, and you're charitably inclined anyway, you can use that donor advised fund to do what's called the bunching strategy. So if you knew you were going to give $100,000 away in the next 2 or 3 years, but you could really use that income tax deduction now, go ahead and put the $100,000 in it now.
Yep.
If you do it before year end, you get to deduct all 100,000 of that, and you know exactly where your charitable contributions are going to come from for the next 2 or 3 years. And because the standard deduction is so high for a lot of folks, a lot of our charitable deductions kind of get lost in the wash, so
Sure.
to say. This is a way to really stand out. So if you want to talk about donor advised funds, we can certainly do that. Again, we're running up on some time. Tim, Roth conversions are a huge one. Can you give us the skinny on Roth conversions again real quick?
Yeah, Roth IRA accounts are very powerful tools. We don't get the tax deduction when the money goes into them, but we do get the tax-free growth and the tax-free distributions later on in life. The idea here is let's pay their taxes while they're cheap. We're in the third lowest tax bracket in U.S. history. Now is a great time to be paying taxes and moving yourself into a position where it's tax-free later on for you. There's a couple rules and things that go along with us, so make sure we have a conversation about that to make sure it makes sense for you. Most of the time, we're not doing this all at once. We're taking your IRA and over several years paying, converting small portions and paying a smaller tax bill, looking to fill what could be used an unused tax bracket, and just trying to use up the tax bracket that you're already in, or the most efficient manner in order to get that done. Put yourself in a tax-free position. It's a great way to save money throughout retirement. It's a great way to build a great legacy for your kids and your grandkids down the road, and a great tax planning tool. Right now is the time to take advantage of it.
Yeah, and it's a complicated situation, but it's something almost everybody can do, right? So let's have a conversation about Roth conversions.
Great.
It makes sense for most people.
I would agree with that, and Bobby's made a great point. Almost everybody can do this. You are not subject to income limitations or conversion amount limitations. I know we get that confusion quite a bit and that question quite a bit. You can convert any amount that you want at any time. You just have to be willing to pay that tax bill.
That's right. And I don't know where this would have fit in our show, but I just want to make sure we say it. We talked about HSAs earlier, and those are able to carry a balance forward, right?
Sure.
But a lot of people have FSAs, the flexible spending accounts that you can fund and use in a current year, but they're subject to that use it or lose it rule. So if you've got money in your FSA, make sure you get
Go
it
spend it.
spent before the end of the year.
And that's
So-
pretty flexible, by the way. You can go on, buy first aid kits, go to CVS and use it a lot of times. So
When I
go
had
ahead.
mine, I bought a whole bunch of contact lenses for myself for
There you go.
Christmas because I knew I was going to use them.
Yeah.
So you can kind of prepay some of those things.
Great
We
point.
had a great show today talking about the end of 2025. We talked about reviewing 401k and IRA contributions. We talked about tax withholding. We talked about gain and loss offsets in your taxable accounts, charitable gifts, reviewing beneficiaries and estate plans. There's so much you should do before year end, and don't let it catch up on you. If you need help or want to talk about any of these things, give us a call or go on to giaplantoday.com. That's our website, giaplantoday.com. There are quizzes for most everything we talked about today. If you want to take those quizzes, figure out where you stand, or leave us a question. We'll get back to you and answer. Tim, appreciate it this week.
Enjoyed it. If you're willing to plan today,
You can own tomorrow. We'll see you next week.